This video is going to include our lesson for 3-12, which is rounding quotients. This is the page out of your book, page 110 for this lesson. And as you can see, we just have one vocab word here, which is round. The rules for rounding are listed right here, which is very helpful. So when you are rounding, you look to the digit to the right of the place to which you are rounding. If that digit is less than 5, you're going to round down. If the digit is 5 or greater, you're going to round up. Now that we have ditched remainders, we are going to be using rounding a lot more in our division. So we're not talking about making estimates where you round the numbers before you divide. We're now talking about rounding our quotient, which is our answer in division. So when you do that, you are actually probably going to need to add a 0 so that you can go out an extra place so that you are able to divide, or I'm sorry, to round back to the decimal place that you want. When you are dividing and then you're going to round your quotient, you are always going to need to divide out to one extra place in your quotient. The reason that is because you're then going to use that extra place that you divided to make your rounding decision. So you can see in this problem here, they had $1.90 divided by 6, and you can see that they divided out to 3 decimal places. You guys know that money has 2 decimal places, but you do need to divide out to that 3rd decimal place so that you can use that number to make your decision. Are you going to make this 31 cents or 32 cents? Because this number in your 3rd decimal place is a 6, which is greater than 5, you're going to round up to 32 cents here. We have one more example down here that is 7 divided by 3. And you can see that it says to round to the nearest 10th space. So we are going to add 2 decimal places to our problem because we have to use the 100th place to then round back to the 10th place. So when you divide this out, you get 2 and 33 hundredths. You would then look at the second 3 and use that to make your decision that this first 3 is going to stay a 3. Notice they use that wavy equal sign to show that they have rounded, and their answer is 2 3/10. Over here, the problem says round to the nearest thousandth, which would be 3 decimal places, which means that they had to go out to 4 decimal places in their answer so that they could round properly to the 1000th place. Notice also in this problem that their divisor was a decimal, so they had to take care of that first by moving the decimal over 2 spots in their divisor and their dividend. That's where your decimal would be then, and they had to add 4 zeros so that they could then round back to the 1000th place. So they have those 4 zeros there, they divided it out, got 4 decimal places so that they could round using that 4th one, which is a 5, and tells you that you need to bump up the thousandths digit to a 1. Down here, they've showed us to use that wavy equal sign, which means about, and they've written their answer correctly as 2 and 211 thousandths. I'm next going to show you some more examples of rounding quotients. So now I'm going to show you some more examples of these types of problems. Our first section on page 111, the directions say divide, round to the nearest tenth. So I wrote myself a little reminder here that I'm going to be rounding these to the nearest tenth, which means I need to divide out 2 decimal places so that I can use the second decimal place to round back to the first decimal place. So immediately I know that I am going to need 2 decimal places here. So I like to go ahead and add those 2 decimal places so that I know that's where I can stop, and I can go ahead and divide it out now. So I'm going to divide using some short division here, put my decimals straight up in my answer, and I now know that my answer is about 1 and I'm going to use this 3 to look back to this number and make my decision. So I am deciding that my 3 should stay a 3, and my answer is 1 3/10. In problem number 3, I have 20 divided by 9 2/10. I'm going to move my decimal first. Remember, when there's not a decimal, it's to the right of your number. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 decimal places so that I know how far I need to divide out. Now I can start my division and do that. Oh, let's see. I got 7 here. Even though I would still have a remainder there, it's okay to stop because the directions said I was to round to the nearest tenth. So I can stop even though I still would have a remainder. And I'm going to go ahead and use my 100th place to round back to my 10th place. So I'm using this number here, and I am going to think about whether or not that 1 needs to change. Because 7 is 5 or higher, I do need to bump the 1 up. So my answer here would be about 2 2/10. Moving down to the next section, our directions here are divide, round to the nearest hundredth, or nearest cent. Now, if you're using money, cents have 2 decimal places, so rounding to the nearest hundredth or the nearest cent both mean that you're going to have 2 decimal places in your answer, which means you need 3 in your problem. So when we start out, we can immediately put those 3 decimal places, and I know that's where I am going to be able to stop. So when I do this, hang on, having a brain fart moment. That's right, sorry. In a moment. All right, so now I have a 3. I have a 3 again. My decimal is here. And this time I'm deciding about that number, and I'm going to look to the right to make my decision. It is below 5, so this 3 is going to stay a 3, and my answer would be about 83 hundredths. Over here, I need to add 1 more 0 so that I have those 3 decimal places that I need. And I can go ahead and divide now. Notice this one is money. So we come out with our answer ended, but we still need to round because money only has 2 decimal places. So I'm thinking about whether this 5 is going to stay a 5 or bump to a 6. I look to the right to make that decision, and it is 5 or above, so I'm going to have to bump that up. And my answer is about, don't forget your dollar sign, about 16 cents. Next, we have examples where you are to round to the nearest thousandth. To be able to do that, because thousands are 3 decimal places, you need to do your division problem out to 4 decimal places so that you can use the 4th to round back to the 3rd place that you're supposed to. So I really like to have that reminder there that, okay, for these problems, I'm going to my thousandths, and you could even add in there how many decimal places you need then. We have no decimal place in our divisor, so we can put that straight up, get our 4 decimal places, and then start to divide. You can see really quickly that this is going to keep repeating. So now I have my 4 decimal places, and I'm thinking about whether or not that 6 is going to stay a 6 or jump to a 7. I look to the right, have a 6, which is bigger than 5, so it's going to round up. So my answer here would be about 67 thousandths. Moving to number 33, I have a decimal in my divisor, so I need to deal with that first. And then I can make sure I have 4 decimal places before I start to divide. Once I'm ready to divide, I can do that and say, okay, 3 goes into 6 twice, no remainder. 3 does not go into 1. So then I have 3 into 10, and you can see that's going to keep repeating. I am deciding about my thousandths place. I look to the right to my 10 thousandths place to make my decision. It is smaller than a 5, so my 3 is going to stay a 3. I still have rounded. My answer is going to be 2 33 thousandths. So those are examples from all 3 of the sections in this section of homework. And the only thing that I want to share with you, and the other thing I want to share is a little chart that'll help you to figure out how many places that you need. So I'm going to say for my headings here, I'm going to say rounding to, and then we can put tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and I'm going to say divide to, and this is going to be like a pattern like so many other things in math. That would be hundredths, thousandths, and 10 thousandths. Oh, forgot my TH. All right, so if you think about how many decimal places that is, if we need 1 decimal place, we're going to divide out to 2 decimal places. If I need 2, I'm going to divide to 3. If I need 3, I'm going to divide out to 4. So your first section, it's asking you in 1 through 12 to divide to tenths, which means you're going to need to divide out to your hundredths so that you can round back to your tenths for your answer. In the second section, 13 to 28, it's asking you to go to hundredths or cents. which means that you want 2 decimal places in your answer, so you're going to have to divide out to 3 decimal places so that you can round back to 2. And then the final section, 29 to 36, you're asked to round to the thousandths place, which would be 3 decimal places, so you're going to have to divide out to 4 decimal places so that you can use the fourth to round back to the thousandth place. So if you think about this for your homework, these will be super helpful in remembering where to divide to, and I do highly recommend you go ahead and put that many decimal places in your dividend so that when you divide, you can not think about that anymore. You can just stop where your problem stops, and then you're going to round back to the place before. Depending on which section you're in, that'll be either the tenths, hundredths, or the thousandths. And what I would like you guys to try with this section is page 111, and I am going to have you do numbers, essentially the evens here, numbers 2 to 36 even. And I will put a video up with me going over that on Monday. So I would like you guys to finish this assignment for Monday. And again, you can, any questions that you would have, you can post on the discussion board for your math class, or you can hold them until your Zoom. Just make sure if you're going to hold them till your Zoom that you make yourself a note of the questions that you have so that you don't forget what they were. That's all I have for this week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your day off tomorrow, and I will see y'all next week.